horoscope says we're destined to dance together.
My horoscope says, beware of dorks.
You feel like you know your thoughts, but you have trouble expressing them?
Yes, I have to admit, I did feel a bit slighted and hurt when I was not invited to be part of the Saved by the Bell reunion.
My God, will you give the baby a bath? He smells like a wet doll.
When you see what Lark Voorhies looks like today, do not lose your breath. That reaction has followed her for years.
Brought up and spoken about, so there's no doubt that that's about to occur.
She broke out as Lisa Turtle on Saved by the Bell, then hit messy turns like leaving the bold and the beautiful over her faith, mental health rumors, a short marriage, stalled work, lupus, and reunion snubs.
Now, after getting married 3 times this past April to an admitted former gang member, her mother is concerned.
For decades, people watched and guessed. This story walks it all back, piece by piece, from the very beginning before answers come. Lark Voorhies was born on March 25, 1974, in Nashville, Tennessee. Her real last name at birth was Holloway. Acting was not some late idea she picked up as a teenager. Her mom noticed early that Lark liked performing, reciting lines, and being in front of people. By the time she was a kid, she was already going to auditions. Eventually, she and her mother moved to California so she could seriously chase acting work. That move alone changed everything. Before most people ever knew her name, Lark was booking small roles. She appeared in commercials and TV guest spots, including shows like Small Wonder.
I had done numerous commercials and guest starring roles on different shows like the Robert Guillaume Show, etc.
She also landed a role on Good Morning, Miss Bliss, a Disney Channel sitcom set in middle school. That show did not last long, but something important happened behind the scenes. The network decided to retool it, move the setting to California, age the characters slightly, and rebrand the whole thing. That decision turned into Saved by the Bell. When Saved by the Bell premiered in 1989, Lark was just 15. She was cast as Lisa Turtle, the fashion-obsessed, quick-talking, confident girl of the group. Lisa stood out immediately. She was stylish, outspoken, and sharp. Viewers noticed. Lisa was not written as a background character. She had jokes, attitude, and plenty of screen time. Lark played her with ease, like she was completely comfortable in that world.
How old was Lisa Turtle?
Well, we were the same age. I was 14,
Okay.
and our characters had just started high school.
The show exploded fast. Saved by the Bell became a Saturday morning staple. It reran constantly. Kids watched it before school, after school, and on weekends. Lark became instantly recognizable. Fan mail poured in. Magazines started running features on the cast. She appeared in teen publications alongside her co-stars. Lisa Turtle became part of pop culture almost overnight. There were also awards and nominations tied to the show's success. The cast won Young Artist Awards, and Lark was consistently praised for her performance. At the time, she was one of the most visible young black actresses on television, especially in a show aimed at teens. That visibility mattered, even if people did not always say it out loud back then. Behind the scenes, the schedule was intense. Filming, press appearances, photo shoots, and promotional events filled her calendar. She was growing up on a set, learning lines while still doing schoolwork.
She was my kindergarten teacher.
Oh, wow.
And I met her again on set. She became a studio teacher, and we made it through 11th and 12th grade.
Nice.
And I got my 4.0.
The show ran from 1989 to 1993, and during those years, Lisa Turtle became the role she would always be associated with.
Will you go to the prom with me?
Yeah, I'll go.
You will?
I'll go with you when worms have ears.
There are real clips from that era where you can hear how confident she sounds in interviews. She talks about fashion, acting, and how much fun the show is.
She's into rural fashions and malls and all that type of bit. And she likes to hang out, with friends and stuff.
At the time, everything looks smooth. Fame seems clean and exciting. Nobody is asking hard questions yet. Nobody is talking about what happens after the cameras stop rolling. When Saved by the Bell ended, Lark Voorhies was still very young. But in the eyes of the public, she was already frozen in that image. Stylish, smiling, effortless. That version of her would follow her long after the show wrapped, whether she wanted it to or not. When Saved by the Bell wrapped in 1993, Lark Voorhies was only 19, but she had already spent years living inside one role. The show did not just end quietly. It spun off specials and TV movies like Saved by the Bell Hawaiian Style, where she returned as Lisa Turtle. On screen, it felt like a smooth goodbye. Off screen, it marked the start of a much different phase of her career. After the show, Lark did what a lot of young TV stars try to do. She kept acting.
I had done numerous commercials and guest starring roles on different shows.
She took roles where she could find them, especially on daytime television. She appeared on Days of Our Lives and later landed a role on The Bold and the Beautiful. Soap operas were steady work and a common next step for actors coming off sitcom fame. It was also a way to stay visible while transitioning out of a teen image.
He was too tiny, too helpless. I had to give him up.
But that transition did not go smoothly. On The Bold and the Beautiful, Lark's time on the show ended under circumstances that quickly became part of her public story. Reports at the time said she refused to perform certain scenes because they conflicted with her religious beliefs. Lark was a practicing Jehovah's Witness, and she took that seriously. According to multiple accounts, she was uncomfortable with some romantic or material written for her character.
Now, what if your little rich girlfriend heard you?
Don't tease me.
This was not framed as a dramatic exit at first. It was more like a quiet disappearance. But the story followed her. In Hollywood, refusing scenes is often interpreted as being difficult, even if the reasons are personal or faith-based. Whether fair or not, that reputation can stick. After that, her mainstream acting opportunities slowed down. Around this same time, her personal life was also drawing attention. She had dated her Saved by the Bell co-star Mark Paul Gosselaar during the early years of the show. Later, she became engaged to comedian Martin Lawrence in the early 90s. That engagement ended publicly and awkwardly. Martin Lawrence announced on the Arsenio Hall show that he was engaged to another woman. Lark later found out that way, which became a piece of trivia that people still bring up decades later. In 1996, she married Miguel Coleman. That marriage lasted several years before ending in divorce in 2004. For a while, her life looked stable from the outside. She was married, working occasionally, and largely out of the spotlight. But the offers she was getting were not on the level of what people expected for someone who had once been a major TV star. During this period, Lark also appeared in films like How to Be a Player and later How High. These were smaller roles, but they kept her name in circulation. Still, it was clear she was no longer being positioned as a leading actress. Typecasting played a role. Lisa Turtle was still the first thing casting directors and audiences saw.
First couple of years after that, going on auditions and getting jobs, I see how other people really believed in this character.
Absolutely.
And so though I was playing different roles, I had to spice it with a little bit of Lisa.
There are interviews from this era where Lark sounds calm and grounded. She talks about faith, boundaries, and choosing peace over pressure. But behind that calm, her career had already shifted. The fame that once came easily was now complicated, conditional, and much quieter than before. By the mid-2000s, Lark Voorhies was no longer showing up regularly on TV, but that did not mean people stopped talking about her. In some ways, the silence made the attention worse. When celebrities step back without a clear explanation, the internet tends to fill in the gaps on its own. And that is exactly what happened.
Began to swirl after that interview.
Right.
And a lot of folks were trying to figure out what was going on. Were you on drugs? Was there some metabolic problem?
In 2006, things reached a breaking point. A tabloid published a story claiming Lark was struggling with use. The article spread fast. Fans saw it at grocery store checkouts and online. The tone was harsh and the claims were serious. Lark did not ignore it. She responded the way very few celebrities do. She filed a lawsuit. Through her attorney, she called the claims false and offensive. The lawsuit named the publication directly and accused it of spreading lies about her health and life. Not long after, the case was dropped. Her lawyer publicly stated that the story was not true. Legally, that should have been the end of it. Publicly, it was not. Once a rumor enters the celebrity narrative, it rarely disappears completely. Even years later, people would bring it up online as if it were fact. This is where the pattern starts to become familiar. Less work leads to speculation. Speculation turns into rumors. Rumors turn into labels. Around 2012, Lark made a few public appearances that reignited attention in a different way. She gave interviews and showed up at events where her appearance looked noticeably different from the Lisa Turtle image people had locked in their heads.
Yeah, certainly, Destin. Yes. Awesome.
The internet reacted immediately. Clips circulated. Comment sections exploded. People focused less on what she was saying and more on how she looked and how she spoke. Some fans expressed concern. Others were openly cruel. There were viral posts asking what happened to her. None of them asked her directly. There are interviews from that period where Lark speaks calmly but abstractly. In one clip, she talks about spirituality, prayer, and protection. To some viewers, it sounded unusual. To others, it sounded personal and deeply religious. But instead of curiosity, the dominant reaction was speculation. People online started diagnosing her, comparing before and after photos, and repeating old rumors as if they were confirmed. Nothing new had been proven. No official statement had been made. But the narrative was already forming without her input. What made this phase especially difficult is that Lark rarely played into it. She did not do tell-all interviews. She did not explain herself in neat sound bites. And in an era where celebrities are expected to constantly clarify and correct, that silence became its own story.
Do you feel like you know your thoughts, but you have trouble expressing them?
Through it all, she pushed back when it crossed a line. The lawsuit was proof of that. She did not accept false claims quietly. But fighting rumors is exhausting, especially when they are recycled every few years by new audiences who think they are discovering something for the first time. By the end of this chapter in her life, Lark Voorhies had become less of a working actress in the public eye and more of a conversation topic. Not because of anything she released or announced, but because people were watching from a distance and drawing conclusions without her. As the rumors kept circling, the focus slowly shifted from gossip to health, though not always in a respectful way. Around the early 2000s, conversations about Lark Voorhies stopped being just about her career and started turning into public debates about her well-being. And a lot of those conversations were happening without her consent. At one point, Lark's mother spoke to the media and said her daughter had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. That statement traveled fast. News outlets picked it up. Blogs reposted it. Commentators treated it like confirmation. But Lark did not agree with that version of the story.
Lark's mother told People magazine that her daughter was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. At first, Lark denied the claim and continued to worry her family, friends, and fans.
She pushed back publicly and clearly. In interviews, she said she was not bipolar. She denied hearing voices. She described what people were seeing not as mental illness, but as moments of prayer and spiritual focus. There are real interview clips from that period where you can hear the tension in her voice. She sounds frustrated, not defensive. She repeats that she is fine, that she knows herself, and that what is being said about her is not accurate. But once a mental health label is attached to someone in public, it becomes very hard to remove. Later, her story became more complicated. In the mid to late 2000s, false reports began circulating, stemming from a hacked Instagram account claiming that Lark Voorhies was battling a serious illness. She and her representatives clarified that she had never been diagnosed with the disease. This period highlighted how quickly misinformation could spread and how public perception often misinterpreted her personal life. Changes in her appearance or energy were sometimes speculated about, but rather than being met with understanding, these moments were often treated as a mystery or fodder for gossip. Around this same time, Lark started appearing on daytime television to talk about her experiences. In these interviews, her tone was calmer and more grounded. She acknowledged struggling. She spoke about mental health in broader terms.
Like, stage boot camp. You know, you put all the right elements together and you keep them going and you keep them going and you keep them going.
While she still pushed back on earlier labels, she also seemed more open to discussing her reality without feeling boxed in by one diagnosis or another. There are real sound moments where she explains that stress, trauma, and physical illness can overlap. She talks about learning to live with her body instead of fighting public expectations. These conversations marked a shift. Instead of people speaking for her, she was finally speaking for herself.
Any reason why someone should worry in my behalf? It's not. It's completely fictional.
Still, public reaction remained mixed. Some viewers felt empathy. Others continued to frame everything through the lens of before and after. Photos were compared. Headlines focused on how she looked instead of what she said. Aging, illness, and mental health were blended together into one vague narrative that rarely felt fair. What stood out during this period was how much of her health journey happened in public, even when she did not choose it. Family statements, media speculation, and viral clips all played a role. By the time she had the space to explain lupus and her perspective on mental health, years of assumptions had already settled in. By the time the 2020s rolled around, Lark Voorhies was dealing with life as an adult far removed from her teen star image. Saved by the Bell was decades in the past, yet it still defined her in the public eye. Fans remembered Lisa Turtle, magazines ran throwback features, and the internet constantly revisited her history. Even though her career had shifted to smaller projects, independent films, and writing, the spotlight lingered. In 2020, the Saved by the Bell reboot brought some of her old co-stars back to the screen. Lark was not initially included. She spoke publicly about feeling slighted and hurt over being left out.
When I was not invited to be part of the Saved by the Bell reunion.
She suggested that her health history and public narrative may have played a part in those decisions. Clips from interviews show her talking calmly, but with a clear sense of disappointment, describing how much the original cast meant to her and how it felt to be excluded.
Yet, of course, I also realized that having this puzzling disorder may have played a major part in that factual decision.
Her career visibility at this stage was a mix of creative work and public commentary. She was exploring music, writing, and acting in smaller-scale productions. Lark also used social media to clarify rumors, address fan questions, and talk about her health journey. Posts about mental health, spiritual beliefs, and her approach to mental health appeared regularly. While mainstream Hollywood offered fewer opportunities, she was still creating, sharing, and engaging on her own terms. Amidst all of this, Lark lived with her mother, who had been both a caregiver and advocate. Her mother's involvement in media stories sometimes drew attention, especially regarding earlier health claims. Still, having a consistent support network allowed Lark to manage day-to-day life more steadily, especially as she navigated mental health, aging, and public perception.
Because people were seeing something, and so I was putting a label to it. And Lark hadn't defined to herself what is going on.
Public commentary about her appearance continued to be a recurring theme. Media outlets and blogs would compare photos from the Saved by the Bell era to current images, often framing changes as shocking or dramatic. Some discussions focused more on her looks than her accomplishments, reflecting a larger cultural issue. Female celebrities, especially women of color, are often judged harshly for aging in Hollywood. Lark's experience became a clear example of how fame, health, and time intersect with societal expectations. Despite the challenges, Lark continued to redefine her public identity. She spoke openly about personal struggles, challenged inaccurate narratives, and highlighted her ongoing projects. She addressed mental health rumors directly in interviews, clarifying her experiences with spirituality, personal growth, and health. In public appearances, she was composed, articulate, and intentional about what she shared.
More international affairs, you know, something that pops a boost with self. That's who you're checking in with. So, more spiritual retreats, things of that nature.
Even in her 50s, Lark Voorhies remained a figure of interest because of her early fame and the curiosity around her life off-screen. In October 2025, a false death report circulated online, prompting widespread attention. Reliable sources confirmed it was a hoax. Lark addressed the situation publicly, reiterating that she was alive and continuing her work. Today, she continues to pursue artistic projects, manage a chronic disease, handle the demands of aging in the entertainment industry, and stay connected with her supporters. At this point, Lark's story centers on strength, personal choice, and taking control of her own narrative, even as the world often focuses on rumors or appearance. She is no longer just Lisa Turtle. She is Lark Voorhies, a normal person who has built a reputable career, living with health challenges and a past that still draws attention.